All right, every week I round up 3 of the best things that I've seen or that I've thought about. It's the stuff that I would actually build with or design thought that I would incorporate into my own home. And so this week, the short list, we're looking at floors. So for your interior finishes, choosing your floors first is a pretty good way to go. They cover, a bunch of square footage. They're a significant part of your budget. They have to be super functional. So starting with that choice and then building your other design choices around that makes a lot of sense. As always, I'll tell you how I would try to get the same vibe as the floors we'll see here in an affordable, achievable way. All right, so let's start with this beautiful kind of polished green tile and wood pairing in this 60s beach house. So the choice of this glossy kind of Coke bottle dark green tile with this beautiful honey colored, I think this is probably a white oak wood. It's just really nice. This little step up is really cool too. I love how they've just used the wood trim between the planes of this tile instead of like a bullnose or, a lot of times today you'll see kind of the Schluter metal kind of tile pieces to make that transition. Wood is a great way to go. You just have to figure out the depth so that the wood matches the depth of your finished tile. But that just keeps everything super simple and eliminates another kind of transition piece. I don't know how big these rooms are, so how much tile this covers. But if it were a really large room, I think I'd break it up with some textured kind of soft rugs to soften everything, or transition to just a wood floor once it gets to another room. Just kind of break up. When you have a lot of small tile, it becomes a little bit busy. So where would you find this tile? You might be able to find a solid color, glossy, kind of indescript tile at a big box store, but I doubt it's going to have the same kind of fit and finish as this. Generally, the tiles at big box stores are going to be kind of contractor grade and pretty generic. So here's a cement tile that I found that looks pretty close in color, this kind of emerald green, and it's pretty reasonably priced, very simple, looks pretty well made. I would definitely get a sample of this before buying it. But another place I'd love to kind of first look for tile is Stone and Tile Shop. You can search for specific materials, sizes, colors. Again, always get the samples of the things you like, test them out in your room. I usually start looking for a natural stone. And this dark green marble is really beautiful, has more pattern than kind of the solid color in this house, but I don't know that that's a bad thing. And then this basalt isn't dark green, it's more of a black, but it is also beautiful. Not as glossy, you'd probably want to seal it, but I think actually that kind of more matte finish might be nice. But the natural stones just have actual real variation in them as opposed to kind of porcelain or ceramic tiles that often will try to replicate that variation in a faux kind of way. So a natural stone, natural limestone, basalt, granite, slate, those are generally my first choices. So I would use a DITRA uncoupling membrane underneath the tile. That's just going to help prevent any kind of cracks. A good thinset mortar, or always check the manufacturer of the tile, what mortar they recommend. An epoxy-based grout. I think epoxy-based grouts are the best type of grout you can get. They're not going to mildew. They're hard as a rock. You can get them in different colors. It's a little bit extra cleanup time, but I think are totally worth it. Tile lasts forever. It sucks to demo and remove. So my best advice is to keep it simple. Don't make it decorative. Whether you do it yourself or you're going to hire a tiler, like I said, get samples of the stuff that you like, put it in your room, and you make the choice. Don't let the tiler or the general contractor push you into something that they always use. It's your house. You decide what you like. Generally, the simple, well-made kind of natural stones are a great way to go. Okay, number 2, and honestly, I don't know exactly what this floor is, and I only know the date of this house because I looked it up. Otherwise, I think it's very difficult to just look at this photo and tell when it was built. And I think that's a good goal to shoot for. And so this home was built in Norway in 2021, won a bunch of architectural awards, I think for good reason. And they just picked super kind of simple materials that look like they could have come from any time period. So these floors, I think a kind of concrete. If you look at some of the pictures, they look a little bit more pinkish, and in some they look kind of more like a light terracotta. And that color, I think, has been a kind of mainstay traditional color for a very long time. And I think it always will be, because it kind of brings to mind like rammed earth. It feels like the oldest of dwellings. I think the choice of wood here is a great match to that color also. And so I think you could achieve a similar look with a terracotta microcement. I have a video on microcement that talks more about kind of the basics that I learned using it in our house, but I'm not an expert, and I haven't sampled any of these kind of terracotta colors. But Shortlist has a few that look pretty similar to this, and that's where I would start. I would get a bag of their colored powder, a bag of their white kind of one coat micro cement, mix a little bit of those together in the correct ratio, put it, trowel it onto kind of a piece of scrap wood, you know, a decent sized piece, put it in your house, see what it looks like. It's going to look completely different in one home versus another, pending the light. So test it out. It's not that expensive, you know, to do, and it's worth the time. Just another thing, obviously this giant opening is awesome, and it works here because I think this whole house is within a glass greenhouse, which is crazy and kind of awesome. But for us kind of regular people who aren't going to build a home within a giant greenhouse, I did want to say that this idea of, you always hear this phrase, bringing the outside in, and you hear it by people talking about these huge glass sliders that are just open to the outside. Those really only work in a few climates. More often than not, it's either too hot or too cold or too wet to justify having these giant openings in your home. I still think you can have a somewhat large sliding door or use, you know, a lot of glass in your home to make it feel like the outside is right there, but you're not going to leave a giant 12-foot opening in your home open for, you know, hours a day. It's just crazy. So anyway, that was a bit of a tangent. The terracotta kind of pinky concrete color, whatever it is, that's beautiful here. So lastly, we have this home by Christophe Gevers, I believe is how you pronounce his name. He's from Belgium. This was his home. He was an interior architect and furniture designer. He has this great quote that I learned when I was looking at this house. It's, "I believe I became a designer because I was interested in the present, which is the future and the past out of date." I'm not quite sure what that means. I think he means that either chasing nostalgia or chasing trends is going to forever put you kind of out of date. And the best thing you can do is to work with materials that are simple and honest and age gracefully. Kind of is what brutalism was kind of about. So obviously that concrete staircase is amazing, but direct your eyes downward to these large format tiles with the wide grout in between. It has this very worn utilitarian feel, more so definitely than the smaller kind of glossy tiles we saw in the first home. If you're covering a lot of square feet, I think a larger format tile is the way to go, as long as you don't go too large and make it hard to handle if you're installing. They're just faster to install. Just make sure your floor is level. Use some leveling clips, and that wider grout, which, you know, looks kind of rustic and cool, is going to be more forgiving You just don't want to get kind of lippage where some of the bigger tiles are sticking out a little bit more than others. So I think this tile is a Belgium blue limestone, which you can get here in the States. It's relatively affordable, really, and it's gorgeous. So you could get this exact look by purchasing this tile. You could also look at this black marble, which is also really pretty. You can get it in a tumbled kind of version, or this honed granite, which is going to have kind of little speckles all in it, which makes it look a little bit like a terrazzo, like a kind of more subtle version of a terrazzo. So any of these tiles could be paired with darker woods or lighter woods. Works great with the brick here. Really, you can't go wrong. You could pick a bunch of different materials that go with these flooring options. You know, I would add some old rugs to soften it up in places and kind of to create more kind of living zones within the house. But you know, this is has looked good for 60 years. I think this was made in 1962 and will look good for 60 more years. So the concretes and the tiles here are all kind of hard, a little bit more cold materials. So I think you could definitely think about underfloor radiant heating and those rugs I mentioned, just to make it have more warmth. So that's this week's short list for floors. 3 different looks. You had the glossy tile, that kind of pinky terracotta concrete, and then those big worn Belgium blue limestone tiles. All different, but all similar in that they're materials that I don't think go out of style. They look great, whether you're building, like I said, in the 60s when Christophe was, or you're building in 2021 like the house in Norway. And they're gonna look great as they age. So if you lock in the decision for your flooring first, all those other material choices get quite a bit easier. All right, we'll see you next week with another short list.